We were all laughing in the green room. That tourist New Yorker thing was really funny. So now we're going to have a brief moment in time. I feel like I should put on a voice for this. With Baratunde Thurston. He makes me laugh. This guy makes me laugh. He's a friend. Whether he's on Twitter, on YouTube, doing stand-up, or with his work as web editor of The Onion, I hope you will all enjoy his awesomeness as much as I do. Please, Baratunde, come on stage.
Thank you very much, Shira. Good afternoon, assembled masses. I want to talk about the future of the news business. I'm going to start with a video that the Onion News Network released just this morning.
Boston Globe subscribers may notice a few changes this morning. The paper has revamped its print edition to better appeal to its 3 remaining readers: Michael Fisher of Boston, Camille Kresge of the nearby suburb of Quincy, and Buddy, the sole reader of the Adams Street Boston Public Library subscription. At a press conference today, the Globe's managing editor, Tom McNally, heralded the paper's new focus. Mr. McNally joins us now. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Okay, now, Tom, what prompted this redesign?
Well, with all the news websites available, newspapers have to identify their audience and aggressively work to keep them.
Sure.
In our case, it's a sales manager, a retired school teacher, and a homeless man who lives behind the library and goes in occasionally to defecate and read.
Okay, how are these changes going to affect the way the Globe actually reports the news, though, Tom?
Well, we'll be bringing our readers the same high-quality news we always have, just more focused on the 5 or 6 topics that interest them.
All right, let's take a look here now at specifics. For example, today's international section has no mention of the recent violence in Pakistan, but does feature a full-page article on Scotland.
Yes, our research shows that Scotland is extremely popular among Camille, who's looking to travel more following her recent divorce.
Well, that also might explain the special investigative report on dating in your 60s in the U.S.
Yes, our 2 remaining reporters worked for weeks on that piece.
Oh, I see.
We also made the paper smaller. That way it was easier for Michael to read it on the train.
Okay.
Buddy's not going to be thrilled about it. I know he liked the way the big pages covered his lap while he masturbated at the library's computers. But, you know, we think the new jumble will make up for that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, I understand that you yourself are taking a more hands-on role at the paper, personally writing the review of I Am Legend in today's art section.
Well, yes, that movie's next in Michael's Netflix queue.
Okay, now, you're not the only paper to make changes to attract readers.
No.
Last month, the Chicago Tribune switched to an all Beyonce photos and coupon format. And also just last week, the Washington Post began printing their newspaper on hot, fluffy pancakes and delivering it to subscribers every morning with a side of bacon.
Look, the Washington Post has 35 subscribers. Obviously, we'd love to have those numbers, but we have lots of other plans to increase circulation. For instance, Newton High School's putting on a production of Annie that might need a prop newspaper, so we could easily sell 1 copy there.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, Mr. McNally.
Thanks.
Next up in science news, new evidence is challenging traditional views on which is the most awesome dinosaur.
Onion News Network, ladies and gentlemen. Onion News Network. We're here at a conference talking about the future, but I want to give a brief history of the greatest news organization on earth. America's finest news source, The Onion, was founded in 1756. It then looked like this: the Mercantile Onion. Those were the only 2 English words our German tuber farmer founder understood when he came here. This was his son, T. Herman Zwiebel. 2001 is not the year of his death, but instead the year he elected to be launched into space, vowing never to return until a cure for the old was acquired. The New York Times recently interviewed T. Herman Zwiebel on its Business Day page. They asked him about business school and the value thereof. Here's what he had to say: "I think they should teach less business. Of course, business schools are a colossal waste of time. Why didn't you take that tuition money and actually start a business? You'd learn just as much from failing at that, wouldn't you? But the little business they do teach tends to make graduates think they understand things. Business is not about understanding things. This economy does not run on understanding things. I myself have never understood anything or anyone, and I have never tried. Business is about doing things I tell you to do. That and advertising to one another until the marketing cycle becomes self-sustaining. Wisdom from our elders." Now, The Onion has been around covering some of the greatest events in the history of the Western world. Of course, the least gay day during the San Francisco earthquake, or who could forget when the largest metaphor hit that iceberg up in the North Atlantic. Of course, when we asked women, why don't you lose some weight? That was a big day in the year 2000. After George W. Bush's election, 9/11 that is, U.S. vows to defeat whoever it is we're at war with was, of course, one of the seminal pieces of journalism ever created in the history of America. And this date, very important, when the I am under 18 button was first clicked on the internet. Very special moment. And obviously a big, big historic moment for America, for Kenya. So I want to talk about why I'm even talking to you, and that's because of the news dominance of The Onion. I think if you take a look at the story in the lower right of this slide, first orgy after Brian's death, very solemn. And look at the trusted sources that provided this news to the American people. The Onion represented 97% of those impressions. When you look at journalistic integrity, this gets right down to the questions that Casey and Dr. Sanjay Gupta and Pete were talking about earlier. There is a 6-point integrity scale maintained by the U.S. government. The Onion, of course, maxes out at a full 6.0. When you compare it to our competitors, the New York Times, whose building we're graciously in, barely registers. The Washington Post, half of that. CNN, half of that. And Gizmodo doesn't even show up on the journalistic integrity chart at all. Very, very sad. Now, we have an iPhone app as well. After about 2 months, we have over 175,000 downloads, and we debuted at the top of the news category, which is, of course, a beautiful and sad testament at the same time. We're here at a conference about social media, and I want to kind of demonstrate the Onion's take on social media. Our belief in participation goes as far as this. We have 2.2 million Twitter followers. We follow no one in return. No one. No one. No one. No one. We do, however, cover this industry because it is news and the people need to know a few things, like the time that YouTube actually ran a contest for a good video. This was a very revolutionary thing, something with production value, plot, a narrative even. When Twitter creator Jack Dorsey admitted after the Iran elections, he never meant for Twitter to be useful in any way, shape, or form. That was breaking news that even Mashable didn't cover. Our Today Now news program covered this trend of e-moms who love to stalk their children on Facebook and Twitter. This was a very popular piece of journalism. And very recently, obviously, with the privacy concerns over at Facebook, when the entire staff engaged in mirth and laughter at one man's attempt to secure his privacy on their very open service. It was a dark day for him, but a bright day for the Facebook employees. Friendster, who could forget this piece of archaeological history? We dug up this archaeologist who in turn dug up this piece of internet history. And just his request was that when you visit Friendster, just leave it as you found it. It's a very delicate set of ruins. And most recently, we took on the Foursquare story quite reluctantly. A new social networking site changing the way, oh Christ, forget it. Let someone else report on this bullshit. And our journalist really had a hard time getting through this story. He kind of cited the New York Times and Time and the San Francisco Chronicle for their attempts to assure their future by writing about their demise. This is a user page that we found and sort of dissected how this service actually works and what it's good for, which is obviously not much at all. A young professional who cannot be pandered to enough. Guy looks a little bit familiar. All right. So we have covered, oh, I guess you want to keep looking at that one, don't you? Yeah. A second visual element. I'll just let you read. It's true. For those of you not in the room, I'm sorry. Everybody's having a great time. Except for you. But all that is preamble to the true constitution I want to deliver today, and that is about the future of the news business. Now, Onion News Network is one of the more recent additions to our empire. It was founded in 1896, seen in over 90 million homes, and very importantly, over 500,000 prison cells, 152 languages used in our broadcast, 9 billion worldwide viewers, and very importantly, ad-based. So Those of you in that business, give me your cards after. There are a series of important words which will proceed to get larger as I flip through the following slides. Conversation, participation, always on, real time. This speed versus accuracy debate is a false dichotomy, and I just want to point out the lies that you heard earlier on the stage today. When Casey said people want to know what's happening right now, that's only because he's limited by the capabilities of his own news organization. But what, I ask, if you could report the news that hasn't yet happened? Now, we invest trillions upon trillions of dollars into our news gathering organization, and we actually launched satellites into space, found a wormhole, and were able to find news broadcasts from the year 2137. We're going to be packaging all of this and selling it later this summer as a digital download. The people in this room are being given an exclusive sneak peek at one of our segments, as well as the full trailer. This is about a 3-minute segment coming up. No one who is not inside the bowels of our headquarters and our operations has ever seen this before. So please pay very close attention. It may be frightening. Keep looking. And that's the President of the United States, by the way.
News out of the Middle East multicultural battle zone. Violence reamed the Gaza scrap today as fighting broke out between the one remaining Palestinian and the one remaining Israeli. The struggle over the Gaza scrap, which began long before the burn down, has stolen the lives of more than 99% of the region's inhabitants. Here is what the news satellite showed us this morning. The violence began when the Israeli army Lev Rosen entered the Gaza scrap and began building a permachete on the disputed land. The Israeli was forced back over the border after suffering a sprained ankle and a bleeding nose at the hands of the Palestinian army Amjad Olrud. Even after the retreat, the Palestinian bombarded Israel with rocks and empty fire ray cartridges for near 2 hours. One Israeli soldier was injured in today's fight. At a press conference in front of the governmental hovel today, the Palestinian president condemned the Israelis' incursion.
ردة فعل فلسطين ستقوم قاسية وهذا سيدفع التمام حاليا هذا انتهى.
The Israeli responded by hollering right back at him.
אם הוא מתכוון לדפוק לי את האוהל, איך שם ויזיין לו את האוהל. אני לא אנהל משא ומתן עם טרוריסט.
We go now to Onion News Network war correspondent Vitamin Daniels, full live, just outside the battle zone. How it do, Vitamin?
What it is, Zesty, is that we're celebrating in the street of Palestine following the successful defensive. But straight moments ago, the Israeli launched another attack and pushed the Palestinian to the edge of the Gaza scrap.
But Syria recently came out with a statement backing the Palestinian and refusing to acknowledge the existence of Rosen.
Yes, Syria has been a friend country for some time. The 6 Minutes War from last year pitted the entire nation of Syria against Rosen, but he beat them back with a broken bottle.
But after losing 66% of its troops to pneumonia last year, many people thought Israel was finally prepped to end the conflict.
Full truth. But even during the ceasefire, there has been sparring. Last week, an edible cat laundered into the disputed zone. Both men laid claim to it, resulting in a prolonged shouting match between the two sides. And today, Israel renewed its pledge to build a barrier between the two nations, a plan that has widespread support among the Israeli.
But the border wall, the border moat, the border plasmote, and the border photonic crystal laser shield did not stop the two sides from fighting.
Full conveyance, but Israel's latest plan is to build a 30-foot-high wall directly around Olrud while he's asleep.
Fuck chance of that.
Most international observers believe the Palestinian army will just climb out.
Well, thank you, Vitamin. I love you.
Love you.
Egypt offered to hold talks, but both sides rejected the offer, suspecting it was a trap by the Egyptian Spider King to ensnare them in webbing and drink their blood. Every word I have said here is true. More news was not possible. Body news now. The Major Surgeon General has issued a warning against diets high in fat people. Think stop to halt download.
Future of news. So it's not just an exhibition of the future of the Onion or the future of news, but also the future of our planet. A drastic event called the burn down has occurred, in which you've seen is a glimpse of the aftermath of that. There's much more to go. I will show you one final clip. It's about 45 seconds of the official trailer, and that should be the end of my remarks. Here we go.
A lot of of networks report the news as it happens, but only one has the power to report the news before it happens. Through our state-of-the-art wormhole satellite, the Onion News Network Future Channel brings you exclusive news transmissions from the year 2137.
Violence reamed the Gaza Strip today as fighting broke out between the one remaining Palestinian and the one remaining Israeli.
We have to oppose this legislation not just for our own sake, but for the sake of America's packs of feral children.
Do you want to die? I can't hear you! Do you want to die?
Because to stay ahead in today's world, you need to know what's going to happen in tomorrow's.
So you can sign up to be notified when we'll be able to take your money for the full version of this. And we also have a Twitter account, ONN Future News, as in Onion News Network, ONN Future News. The motto of our news gathering organization is in Latin, Tu stultus est, which translates roughly to, you are dumb. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your conference.